video, we're going to be discussing how to replace the fan board on a 10 kilowatt air assist chiller. We're also going to be discussing how to access the couple of the transformers that are located in the same area. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you have a number 2 Phillips screwdriver, and then verify that the power to the chiller has been turned off. Go ahead by pulling down this cover here, verifying that the main breaker on this is also turned off, and removing the 2 screws holding this door together. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to have to remove this lower panel. For the video purposes, I've already removed 3 of the 4 screws that hold this on, but there's also 2 screws on the bottom and 1 over here. Once you remove those 4 screws, this just slides right off. You can just set that panel off to the side. Okay, so the location of the controller, or the fan control board, is actually behind this main controller. The way you're going to access that is there's 2 screws on the bottom and there's 2 screws on the top that hold this panel into place. So we're going to have to go ahead and remove all the screws all the way around the top of this, holding this top cover on. I've already done that for the video purposes, but once you remove the screws, you're just going to lift up on these 4 corners, or these 2 corners, and kind of just slide it back. You don't have to remove the whole top. You just have to have it back enough where you can get access to the 2 screws on top here. After you remove these 2 top screws, we can go ahead and go to the bottom. And remove the last 2 screws on the bottom there. At this point, we can go ahead and slowly slide this panel off to the side. And you'll see that there's a couple of wire cables holding the controller to this frame. We can just go ahead and slide that out of the way. We don't actually have to remove any of these cables. Just be careful we don't put too much pressure on them. As you can see here, this is actually the controller fan board, or the fan board controller, and then also your TC2 and TC3 transformers. If you needed to get access to them, you do the same process, and you just remove that bolt from either one of those and then replace that whole assembly. To replace this, I highly recommend you writing down the location of every of the 6 wires that are here, or taking a picture. I'm going to go ahead and take a picture so I know exactly where each one of these are at, because there's a decent spacing between each one, and it can get a little confusing. Okay, now that I have some pictures of this and I know exactly where each one goes, I'm going to go ahead and slowly wiggle these connections off. Once I have the 4 wires off, or 6 wires off of this, I'm going to go ahead and use my screwdriver again and remove the 4 very tiny screws holding this board together. I do recommend taking caution. You don't drop these screws. If not, you will have to go find them. Okay, now you have the 4 screws out. You can carefully pull this board out. Make sure you don't pull on any of the wires. Okay, and this is what the controller for the fan board looks like. As you can see here, there is also a cover on here, but there is a 1/4 amp fuse. So if there ever is an issue with the fan board and you feel like there's an issue, you verify that that is not burned out. At this point, you would go ahead and throw this one away and install a new controller fan board that you've ordered from ACT. At this point, I'm actually going to replace this with the same one, as this controller is not bad. First thing you want to do is mount this back onto the board, or back into the controller. Okay, once you have the four screws tightened down, Go ahead and pull out your notepad or your camera, wherever you took the pictures at, and wire them according to your pictures. Be extra cautious to make sure you're actually putting them in the right spot, as it's a little deceiving sometimes. They're seated all the way. Once you have the six wires back into place, we can go ahead and start slowly putting this back in line and reconnecting the screws. I want to be cautious not to use any kind of power tools to reinstall these screws, as they do tend to strip. Always hand start them. You make sure you don't tighten that down until you get all 4 screws in place. Once you have all 4 screws tightened down, you can go ahead and put the top cover back in place. Go ahead and close this up. And put this bottom cover back into place. At this point, we've successfully replaced the controller fan board and shown you the location of the TC2 and TC3 transformers. If you have any more questions on how to do this job, feel free to give ACT a call at any time. Thank you.